23. Ms. Rutledge, would you please recite the sunshine law?
Pursuant to the Open Public Meetings Law, notice of this meeting stating the time and place was satisfied by the filing of an annual notice with the local source and the Star Ledger, newspapers of general circulation within the Township of Union, and posted on the bulletin board of the Township of Union Municipal Building.
Thank you, Ms. Rutledge. Roll call, please.
Ms. Frazier?
Here.
Mr. Lee?
Here.
Mr. Lewis?
Here.
Ms. Perkins?
Here.
Reverend Starling? Mayor Figueredo? Committeeman Bowser? Ms. Ricketts? Mr. Miller?
Here.
Mr. Cohan?
Here.
Mr. Johnson?
Here. As we have a quorum, we'll commence with the meeting. Mr. Jallo, would you please swear in the township engineer?
Yes. Raise your right hand. Do you swear the testimony that you give today will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, I have a motion to approve the minutes of July the 27th, 2023.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes for July 27th, 2023.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. A second?
Second.
Roll call.
Ms. Frazier?
Yes.
Mr. Lee?
Yes.
Mr. Lewis?
Yes.
Ms. Perkins?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Cohan?
Yes.
Chairman Johnson?
Yes. Next on the agenda, I'd like to have a motion to approve the application 2023-09.
I make a motion to approve application 2023-09.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Roll call.
Ms. Frazier?
Yes.
Mr. Lee?
Yes.
Mr. Lewis?
Yes.
Ms. Perkins?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Cohan?
Yes.
Chairman Johnston?
Yes. All right, for new business, we had initially assigned to the calendar application 2023-12, BAPU Corporation. That has been adjourned and will be carried to the September 28th meeting, so if there's anyone here on BAPU Corporation, we'll be hearing that on the 28th of September. All right, Ms. Russell, I understand we have a presentation from you today?
Good evening, everybody. Kristen Russell, planner with Colliers Engineering and Design. I'm here tonight to present to you an area in need of redevelopment study. This one is being referred to as the AC lot. You may be familiar with the parcels. If you're looking at the screen, the big pink parcel is currently a commuter parking lot, and that was actually adopted as an area in need as part of a different study back in 2015, along with the paper street of Miley Avenue to its rear. That is still the case. We are not modifying that. However, we are taking an opportunity to look at adjacent parcels to see if the existing study area could be enlarged. The three new parcels that we looked at for this study are Block 2906, Lot 16, and Block 2908, Lots 4 and 5. They combine over 2.5 acres. The front lot, which is to say 2096, Lot 16, is the Masonic Lodge, and the other two lots at the rear are really just undeveloped, overgrown, wooded areas. They're currently undeveloped. The current zoning on those two rear undeveloped areas is AH3 for affordable housing, and the Masonic Lodge zoning is DC for downtown core. So you're used to me coming to you and telling you which criteria a study area meets, if any. And this one's a little different because the existing study area was already determined to be in need. We are instead going to take advantage of Section 3, which I do occasionally mention, and for some reason it is falling off the screen, but I will just summarize for you. Anyway, Section 3 says that any additional lots which would be help for the overall effective redevelopment of the area, whether or not they meet the traditional criterion, may be included. So what that means is the overall study area can be better developed if you include these additional parcels. So, as I mentioned, I just have a few pictures here of the lots that we were talking about. Here's the Masonic Lodge lot, 40,000 square feet, surface parking, Morris Avenue frontage. And as I described the rear lot, it's just overgrown wooded area. That's 80,000 square feet, the two lots combined. So again, Section 3. This allows the inclusion of parcels necessary for the effective redevelopment of the area by stating that a redevelopment area may include land, buildings, or improvements which of themselves are not detrimental to the health, safety, or welfare, but the inclusion of which is found necessary with or without change in their condition for the effective redevelopment of the area in which they are a part. So while these parcels are not inherently problematic or detrimental, they would create a larger area for the eventual redevelopment of the study area. If these parcels had been contemplated at the time of the original adoption, this would have been the same approach. So now we're just kind of going back and adding them in to supplement that original redevelopment plan. Overall, it would create a larger development parcel, or in the alternative, incentivize improvements that would contribute to a more comprehensive and successful redevelopment site. It would afford more opportunity for open space, circulation, and infrastructure. It really is that simple this time around, since we're using criterion 3, excuse me, not criterion 3, it's section 3. But it's really just adding additional adjacent parcels to the existing redevelopment area in an effort to incentivize development and have a more comprehensive site. I'd be happy to take questions, because I know this isn't quite the same as how we usually do it.
Are you aware if the Masonic Lodge is still in use?
The Masonic Lodge is still in use. I am not certain if, so I was asked by the township to include that parcel. I am not sure if they were spoken to, but what I will say is that it is my understanding that the intent of including them is not to, it's to give them a broader opportunity, a wider, how do I say this? It will increase their ability to improve their site should they desire. It won't require them to change their site, it won't require them to sell their site, but if they wanted to make changes to their site, it would give them more opportunities to do so.
However, if I might interrupt, Kristen, be aware that this is a non-condemnation area in need of redevelopment. Okay, so the town is not intent on condemning the Masonic Lodge. They would have to be a willing participant in the redevelopment if they wanted to. Okay? So, just to make a distinction there.
Yeah, so they could, once a redevelopment plan is written, if this is adopted, they could take advantage of those opportunities, or they could say, no, thanks, we're just going to keep our site the way it is.
Any questions from the board? Questions from the public? Ms. Russell, would you like to sum up?
Yeah, so in summary, the study that is before you today is really almost a part 2 of an existing adopted area that was determined to be in need. It adds 3 parcels adjacent to an existing study area through the use of Section 3 of the Local Redevelopment Housing Law, which simply says that parcels that may not meet the traditional criterion, but which would be necessary and useful to the overall development of the site may be included.
Thank you, Ms. Russell. I'll take a motion to have municipal lot redevelopment area move for approval to the Township Committee.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the board concurs with the study's conclusions and recommendations and send back to the Township Committee for final adoption.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Second? Second. Roll call, please.
Ms. Frazier?
Yes.
Mr. Lee?
Yes.
Mr. Lewis?
Yes.
Ms. Perkins?
Yes.
Mr. Miller? Yes. Mr. Cohan?
Abstain.
Chairman Johnston?
Yes. Okay, Ms. Russell,
Thank
thank you.
you.
Thank you again. All right, Mr. Hill, I understand you have RCG Realty?
Good evening, everyone. Stephen Hale, representing the applicant RCG Realty LLC. And let me give a little brief background on this. I'm sure everyone knows where Iorio Street is. It's in the industrial section of Union Township, and it's the facility now of my client who operates a roofing company at that location. They were located for a number of years in Kenilworth. They decided to purchase the property in Union and have a successful roofing business at that location. So it's, what we'd like to do is just take you through a little bit of what they're looking to do. Again, it's a small addition to the rear of the building. It's an oddly shaped lot, and the company, by the way, is Safeway. And Rich Greeley is seated behind me here. I'll have him explain a little bit about their business. But again, the nature of the business is that almost everything is done on-site. They do a lot of large commercial roofing projects, so there'll be a handful of employees at the location, but then even all of the equipment and all is usually brought right to the job site and completed there, and then even trash and everything is disposed of at the different job sites. It's, again, a fairly small addition to the building, and you'll see when we show up the site plan, it's a very odd-shaped lot, and there's some variances associated with setbacks, but again, that you'll see based upon the site plan, generally is because of the nature of the lot configuration. I note, and Phil put it in the letter, there's a technical variance for one parking spot, but there's so much room there, and we can work with Mr. Hatter and have plenty of space to add another parking spot, so that's not an issue. And you'll hear from the testimony of Mr. Greeley. Again, there's a limited number of employees at the site. Most of the employees go directly to the job site. There's a handful of office employees and a handful of employees that come to the job, or I'm sorry, to the building, park their vehicle, and then take the company equipment to the job site, which is pretty typical of businesses that mainly do projects at different locations. So
Steve, is that a variance that you would not be requesting?
we won't need it now. Now, and again, you'll see from the site plan, there's plenty of room on that site to throw
Yeah, yeah.
another space or two. So what I'd like to do first is call upon Richard Greeley from Safeway Contracting and also principal of the owner to tell us a little bit about his investment into the Township of Union and his future investment. And you're going to be sworn first by counsel.
Raise your right hand. Do you swear the testimony that you'll give today will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Please state your name for the record, please. Please state your name for the record again.
Richard Greeley.
Greeley. Thank you.
I'm the general manager of Safeway Contracting.
Okay. So, Mr. Greeley, first, tell us a little bit about your company, and we'll talk about first a little bit about your company and the nature of the work that you do.
We primarily do roofing and sheet metal work, a lot of school work, institutions, a lot of public bid stuff. Last year, we actually did about 7 schools right in the township here, which went very well. It was nice to deal with the people over here. We moved from Kenilworth to Union. We bought a 2.5-acre lot with a 10,000 square foot building, and we're starting to expand, and we like to stay in Union. We like it here. We're very close to the highway. You come out Iorio, you get right on Route 22.
And this, we know your architect is here to explain the building, but what does your company do at this location? And just expand on
Okay.
the number of employees.
We actually have a full-blown sheet metal shop there. We bend all the metal for the perimeters of the buildings, any counter flashings. So we bring in like flat aluminum sheets. We shear them, we cut them. We have computerized brakes that bend them. Some of the stuff we have to store, but most of it goes to the job site. The building, we need the expansion for is some maintenance on equipment, to store some equipment. A lot of adhesives now that we have. They're water-based, they can't stay outside, so we need to put them in a heated area. And that's mainly what we do.
Okay. And I know you have a handful of, how many employees are at the site? I know you have a combination of office employees
Yes,
and
I would say
drivers.
95% of our employees go with their own vehicle right to the job site. We do very large jobs, like a small job would be probably a $100,000 job in the public sector. We have 3 drivers that bring materials back and forth to the job site every day. That's their jobs. We have guys that run roll-off trucks. But we really need the spaces for product and some maintenance work.
Okay. Now, approximately how many office employees do you have?
We have 3 people in the office.
Okay.
That's it.
And then approximately how many drivers?
We have 3 drivers, sometimes in the middle of some, maybe 4 drivers, and probably half of those actually have company vehicles that they take home at night and come in and then get in a big truck and drive a big truck and they take them home. But the parking isn't really an issue over there. You'll see it's a large site.
Okay. And you've had an opportunity to review the departmental comments from Mr. Hatter and Colliers. Any problem complying with any of those terms and conditions?
Not that I can see.
Okay. Good. And again, your long-term goal is to put this addition so you can remain at this site in the
Yes.
township?
Yes, I like it here. Yes.
Great. I have no further preliminary questions of Mr. Greeley.
Thank you, Mr. Hale. Questions from the board? Questions from the public?
Looks like all our
Yes,
witnesses.
Mr. Hale, your next witness, please.
Yes, good.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome, sir.
I'd like to call upon our site engineer, William Scott.
Raise your right hand. You swear the testimony that you'll give today will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Okay, Mr.
I'm
Scott.
sorry, sir, would you please state your name for the record?
sorry.
please?
William Scott, SCOTT.
Thank you, sir.
All right, Mr. Scott, if you could give the board the benefit of your work, educational experience, area of expertise, licenses you hold, and whether you've been qualified before other boards or courts in the state of New Jersey.
I have a Bachelor of Science degree from the Clarkson University School of Engineering. I obtained my civil engineer's license in the state of New Jersey in 2004. I've held that license in good standing ever since I've obtained it. I've been in practice as a general site engineer since 2004. Prior to that, I was specialized in petrochemical engineering and surveying. I've appeared before approximately 24 municipal boards in central New Jersey. I've appeared before the Union Township Board once. I believe it was my second appearance way back when. So it's been
There's
quite
always a
while.
first and a second. So I would offer Mr. Scott.
Would you like to offer as an expert witness, Mr.?
Yes, in the area of
So ordered.
engineering.
Please proceed.
Great.
Thank you.
Hey, by the Bill, Sal loaded the plans on there, and if you need help.
I might need a little assistance here, I'm sorry. It's under the engineering folder?
Hey, Sal?
I just don't, there's like 4 folders on there, I just dumped them all.
Okay. Nick is good at this stuff, too.
Mr. Scott, if I may, could you talk a little louder into the microphone?
Sure.
Thank you.
These were
We had an updated plan that came in.
engineered, these are what he gave me for the rear case right here.
Did this come in recently? This one up there?
I thought that was the other case.
Oh, could be.
Unlike
the
the old
case?
days with the
Is this the other case?
boards.
Yeah. Yeah, this is what he gave me these for, here.
Yes. Oh.
Yep, that's it.
All right, you just hit
All right. Thanks, Nick.
Great, thank you.
Okay. All right, so Bill, why don't we take the board through this overall site area, existing conditions, and we can move on to what's proposed by way of improvements.
Sure. What's on the screen now is sheet 1 of 4 that we prepared. It's a general overview of the area and 200-foot radius map. The next sheet is an existing condition survey.
Oh, and just if we could, you'll see on that, when I was indicating in my opening, the odd configuration of this lot. It's backs up to the railroad and it's, bless you.
So this is the existing conditions plan. You can see the existing building to the bottom left or to the southwest corner of the site. It's indicated by shading. And we have the proposed addition, which is to the north of that, which is shaded in a green color. Everything essentially to the east of the existing building is existing parking lot, general storage of materials and equipment. There is a small parking area to the east of the building abutting Iorio Street. We're proposing to stripe that to properly space the parking spaces and to add the proper ADA access to the buildings.
Oh, by the way, Scott, I indicated it in the beginning, discussing with Mr. Hatter, that we certainly have room to add one additional parking space to eliminate the need for any parking variance. Just to
Yeah, we did actually indicate that. If you can see that one space indicated in pink, that's the location that we could add without any issue, an extra parking space.
Great. Sorry for interrupting.
No problem. So the addition will be entered through 2 large roll-up doors, which would be the entrance and exit for the equipment that would be serviced within the building. There's ample circulation on the site. Essentially, there's a large open stone area allowing movement of the vehicles in and out around the site. The building addition is occurring in an area which is currently stone, so we are not expecting any change in the stormwater runoff from the site. We're not proposing any change or alteration in the lighting of the site. Lighting currently occurs from 3 pole-mounted floodlights, 1 along Iorio Street and 2 internally on the site. We don't expect any significant changes or need for utilities. Most likely will be serviced through existing connections within the building. We did prepare an exhibit that shows some of the truck circulation. I have that here, if I can pull it down. So what we did is I shaded out the portion of the site plan and added the truck turning radiuses in blue. There's a dumpster, existing dumpster, refuse dumpster to the west of the site in the rear. And we show the maneuvering of the pickup, a head-in movement and an exit back out onto Iorio to the west of the building. And then I show also a truck entering off of Iorio, coming into the site, essentially circulating in 180 or 360 degree movement and exiting back through the same area. There are 2 gates in the fence that runs along Iorio, although most of the time the gate to the west is left closed. So that's So I think I touched on most of the engineering items.
Yeah, and just in general, you've read the review letter. I know we reviewed it in detail with, that Mr. Hatter had issued. Any problem complying with any of those terms and conditions?
No.
Excuse me.
Okay. And I believe there was a comment from fire. We have no issues with any of those also. So I have no further questions at this time, Mr. Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Hill. Questions from the board? Questions from the public? Mr. Hill, your next witness?
Yes, thank you. I'd like to now call, thanks, Bill. I'd like to call upon our architect, Corey Fernandez.
Please raise your right hand. Please state your name for the record.
Corey Fernandez, Fernandez. I'll back up a little bit.
Usually people aren't loud enough.
Do you swear the testimony that you'll give today will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay. And Mr. Fernandez, if you could please give the board your credentials, the area of expertise, licenses you hold, and whether you've been qualified as an architect before other boards or courts of the state of New Jersey.
Sure. I'm a licensed architect here in New Jersey. I'm also licensed in New York and South Carolina. I've been licensed since 2016. I've attended college here in New Jersey at NJIT and received my Bachelor of Architecture in 2013. I am the owner and operator of Total Architecture, and we are the architects of record for Safeway contract in this planned addition. I've appeared before boards in Somerset County and in Morris County, most recently Somerville, Morristown, and Hillsborough.
Right. I would offer Mr. Fernandez as an expert in the field of architecture.
So ordered, please proceed.
Great, thank you. All right, Corey, if you could take us through, obviously you're well familiar with the site, and you've heard the testimony of Mr. Greeley and Mr. Scott. If you could take us through the architectural aspects of the proposed addition to the building.
Sure, just see if I can find them here. Okay, I don't see them in this file. I brought my own USB. Does that help?
It should be there, but sure, you can.
On the side, right there, next to the little adapter.
Okay.
Try the side. Yeah, I'm just gonna.
Did you have it there?
There's an architectural photo that says Chestnut Street.
Oh, that's the other one, yeah.
Okay. 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 So what we're looking at here is the ground floor plan of the building with the proposed addition. So everything on page left here of this gray line right here is existing, and everything to the right, page right, is the proposed addition. So the addition is about 4,800 square feet, and it will have multiple points of entry, including large format overhead doors, 2 man doors. There's also a planned mezzanine within the building for additional storage, tool storage. This addition is taller than the existing building, mostly because we want to be able to accommodate larger equipment coming in and out of the building. The existing building is completely masonry, reinforced block construction with a wood roof. Our plan is to do similar type of construction, masonry block walls, wood roof. We may go to steel roof depending, but very similar construction to what's there right now. This is the proposed roof plan. It just shows a clearer image of the part of the building that's the planned addition, and that would be this trapezoidal shape here, page right or north of the building. So these are the elevations. Masonry facades throughout to match the existing building. The south elevation, which is the front entry to the building, will remain as is. Proposing glass doors, many windows to try to get as much natural light into the shop as possible. But, yeah, I think it's, speaks for itself and pretty basic type of addition. So,
Okay. And from an architectural standpoint, any problem complying with any of the terms and conditions of either the Collier's review or the fire department requirements?
no.
And I assume it'll be all modern construction and no issues with respect to that?
It'll be constructed to meet the required codes, for sure.
Okay, great. All right, I have no further questions at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Hill. Question from the board?
Yes, I noticed that on the comments from our Colliers, that there's no loading zone proposed.
Oh, you know what? Actually, it wouldn't be Cory, but I can have Mr. Greeley come back up and address that. Yeah, yeah.
Sure, thank
Okay.
And similar to, and I can just offer, before we call Mr., you can go back up just to clarify.
I'll leave the plans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would think you'd need
That
one.
as a practical matter, just like the park, it's a huge lot, but Mr. Greeley can explain a little bit how the loading and unloading is done.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions from Mr. Fernandez?
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah.
None? Questions from the public? All right, thank you, Mr. Fernandez.
Okay. So there's a question by Ms. Perkins as to loading and unloading, and I think let's clarify again that most of that goes directly to the site, but on the plan itself, just explain how that works.
Yeah, most of our stuff is delivered direct right to the job site.
Yeah.
It's craned up on the roofs. We have very little deliveries that actually come to the site, to this location.
All right. And when there are, I assume there's adequate space on this large lot for trucks to come in if you do have a delivery to load and unload?
There's,
That's not the site.
There's roll-up doors on there, on the existing building now, to get into the building. There's
So loading and
1, 2,
unloading many
3,
times is done?
there's 4 very large doors. If you need to drive a high-low in and outside the building, it's not a problem.
Thank you.
Okay, great.
Where do the Amazons, United Parcel Service, and Postal Service?
They come right through the front door.
Okay, but where do they park?
They usually park right in the street.
Yep.
They can park in our site, but they never do. They park in front of the door, and they run in, and even the postmaster, the mailman, all of them do, FedEx.
Being at the end of Iorio Street, that doesn't present a problem, I assume.
No, I haven't really had any problems, no.
Any questions from
So
the...
technically, you still need a variance.
Yes, we're seeking that we don't have a designated
Right,
loading
because
area.
there's no designated.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's what I wanted to clarify. Thank you.
Yeah.
Good.
Okay. Any other questions from the board? From the public? Thank you.
Okay.
Next witness, Mr.?
Yes, I'd like to call upon Nicholas Graviano, our professional planner.
Okay.
Please state your name for the record.
Nicholas Graviano.
Do you swear the testimony that you'll give today will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, and I believe Mr. Graviano has been before this board on actually the last hearing, but
I was
just
just
again,
gonna say-
confirm your credentials.
We can order him viewed as a expert witness. That's no problem.
Okay, great.
Thank you, Chairman. My license is still valid.
Thank you.
Okay. So, Mr. Graviano, if you could please take us to the planning justification for any relief being sought in connection with this application.
Certainly, Mr. Hale. The applicant is before you this evening requesting preliminary and final site plan approval with 2 C variances that are being created by this application. The remainder of the variances are existing conditions variances that are not augmented by this application. The applicant is requesting an addition into the rear of the existing industrial building on the site. The first variance that's required with this application is the rear yard setback variance. 50 feet is required, whereas 10 feet is proposed. I think as you saw in the engineering and architectural testimony, this is an irregularly shaped site. It's also, the building sits on the front yard setback. The only rational location for this addition is to encroach into the rear yard setback due to the positioning of the building as well as the oddly shaped configuration of the parcel. That variance could certainly be granted under both the C1 and C2 criteria. C1 due to the exceptional shape of the specific piece of property and the structures lawfully existing thereon. Strict application of the township zoning ordinance would create an undue hardship upon the developer. Can also be granted under the C2 criteria, whereas hardship need not be demonstrated. What must be demonstrated that it relates to a specific piece of property and that it advances purposes of zoning in the municipal land use law. And this proposal certainly advances purpose A, promotion of the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare. The improvement and enhancement of the industrial operation here certainly helps the rateable base as well as the employment base within the township. And the applicant's goal to safely maintain vehicles certainly advances goals of public health and safety. It also advances purpose G, sufficient space and appropriate location for a variety of industrial uses to meet the needs of New Jersey citizens. The setback variance certainly could be granted without substantial detriment to the public good. This portion of the site abuts another drive aisle of another industrial use, so there's no detrimental impacts to the neighbors with the granting of that rear yard setback variance. Additionally, there's no substantial impairment of the zone plan, which is the master plan. This addition certainly advances master plan goals of strengthening the industrial base and keeping a good rateable base within the township. And there's certainly not a substantial impairment to the zoning ordinance with the granting of that variance. The second variance that the applicant is creating with this application is the loading zone that we just discussed. The applicant has indicated that there are roll-up doors to accommodate deliveries. Also, the large nature of the site and the nature of the applicant's business, many of these materials are just delivered into the site and loaded onto the ground and moved within the building and other portions of the site. As with the rear yard setback variance, that can also be granted under both the C1 and C2 criteria with a similar rationale. The existing variances relate to impervious coverage, lot depth, side yard setback, and front yard setback. None of those are being changed by this application. That's certainly applicable under the C1 criteria due to the exceptional nature of the piece of property and the structures lawfully existing thereon. I would also like to reiterate that the applicant is eliminating the parking variance and will create the parking required by ordinance on site.
Thank you, Mr. Graviano. No further questions at this time, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Hale. Questions from the board? Questions from the public? Thank you, Mr. Graviano.
Thank you, Board.
Your next witness, Mr. Hale?
We have no further witnesses this evening. Certainly, any of our witnesses that have testified are here if the board has further questions.
Would you like to sum up?
Yeah, just briefly, it's great to see a business that came from another municipality into Union and then further investing. It's Safeway is a great company, as you heard, doing business with the township school system and surrounding area. The addition is a modest addition to a large site, and it's great to see, again, further investment into the township, particularly in the industrial area. The variances that Mr. Graviano cited, the rear yard setback, abutting another industrial property with an oddly shaped lot, and the loading space variance, again, addressed by simply the way the site is configured. So for those reasons, we request the board grant this application and have this project move forward. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Hill. I'll accept the motion to approve application 2023-06.
So moved.
Second? Second. Roll call, please.
Ms. Frazier?
Yes.
Mr. Lee?
Yes.
Mr. Lewis?
Yes.
Ms. Perkins?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Cohen?
Yes.
Chairman Johnson?
Yes.
Thank you very much, and appreciate
Very
your
welcome.
time this evening.
All right, and Mr. Hill, as we discussed, for application 2023-08, I am disqualified. So,
want to take a minute break?
I would like to have 1 minute break.
so we're going to take a short break, okay?
Thank you.
You like that chair?
Mr. Hale, we can
No,
come-
thank you.
We can reconvene.
We had to
Where's,
get rid of the chairman anyways. All right.
Hop on this thing.
where's the,
There's a cushion
where's
here
the
that I can't use.
Yeah. You-
Someone else must have. We're going to reconvene now, and the next case we'll be hearing 407 Chestnut Street. Application 2023-08.
Madam Chairwoman, Stephen Hale, representing the applicant 407 Chestnut Street LLC. I did have an opportunity to speak to counsel and Mr. Hatter. We received, our client was supposed to be here to provide operational testimony from the last hearing. Unfortunately, we got word that on his way here, he was quite ill and is not able to come this evening. I did discuss again with counsel and Mr. Hatter as to whether or not we wanted to put our engineer and architect on to explain the plan revisions that were done from the feedback we received at the last hearing, including the trash enclosure, the overhang, the signage. But based on our discussion with them, and we agree, it would be better to carry this evening to next month and have all the testimony from our architect, engineer, and our client wrapped up in one clean presentation. So we apologize, things like this happen. If it was a virtual hearing, you never know, we might have been able to have them struggle through it, but in the new age of back to in-person, and again, we apologize to the board to make this request, but we do, again, appreciate the feedback we received from the board last time, and I think the plan that we submitted, the revisions address those concerns. So,
Thank you. It's regrettable that he is ill, but I then ask for a motion to allow this to be carried to the next meeting, which is
it's the 28th.
September 28th.
So moved.
And the second, please? Second. Roll call, please.
Ms. Frazier?
Yes.
Mr. Lee?
Yes.
Mr. Lewis?
Yes.
Ms. Perkins?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Cohen?
Yes.
Well, and I'll just confirm, it's carried without the requirement of further notice to the hearing at 7 o'clock on September 28th, and I don't think we're even close to the time period, but we would stipulate any appropriate extension of the time period, the 120 days for the board to act on the application. So, thank you again for your patience and indulgence, and look forward to seeing you next month.
Thank you.
All right, have a great night.
Thank you. Move to adjourn.
Second.
Steve. Did you need Steve?